So the information superhighway, it was supposed to be this awesome thing. Awesome because, at our fingertips, in a matter of seconds, we now have access to more information than we've ever had before. You want to find a good restaurant? Just Yelp it. You want a new pair of shoes? It's just a few clicks away. Probably fit you better and have greater selection than any shoe store you can go to. Or, if you want to remember something like the names of the 3 ships that sailed the ocean blue with Columbus, just can't remember that? Well, just Google it. There it is. But if you're like me, at times you might find the information superhighway maybe a bit overwhelming, maybe even paralyzing. There's just too much information. What do we do with it all? One search leads to another, which leads to another. Before I know it, I've blown through 2 hours of my Saturday morning and 3 cups of coffee. And I still don't even know the answer to why I sat down in the first place. Or even forgot why I sat down in the first place. Has that ever happened to you?
Oh, yeah.
Now, as a church, left with the task of the mission of Jesus to go out into the world, make disciples, what do? I think we usually approach like some vision for outreach, something like this. We grab a cup of coffee, we sit down, we go to the information superhighway and spend a couple of hours on it, where we read blog posts and websites and maybe see some book deals, all offering narratives on how some person or vestry or church succeeded at just what you're trying to do. And the message is we can succeed too, but at the end of our drive, we find ourselves just as lost as when we began. We don't even know where to begin. From my experience anyway, I think we end up a lot like Philip in today's gospel. Instead of beginning a new program of outreach, which is what we set out to do in the first place, we say things like, Lord, how in the world can we do that? Where do we begin? We're in a lot of debt, yet 6 months of our operating budget won't even cover what we want to do. And instead of empowering, today's information superhighway has overwhelmed, maybe even paralyzed us. That outreach vision is paralyzed. But here's the thing about the information superhighway. Even as super as it is, it's human knowledge, and human knowledge is finite. Human knowledge is not the same thing as love's knowledge. Human knowledge ends. But love's highway, or the highway of love's knowledge, let's say, has just begun. I think we see this in today's gospel as well. There's some 5,000 people who've gathered around Jesus, and Jesus formulates this vision to feed them. It's outreach ministry. So Philip and Andrew, and we presume the other disciples around Jesus, they gather information, but they come up short. There's a lot of people, Jesus, they say. 6 months' wages wouldn't be enough to buy food for even a little, for everybody. We've looked around and there's a boy. This boy has, 5 barley biscuits and 2 sardines. What good will they do? It's an overwhelming, maybe even paralyzing problem. It would take a miracle. I think Philip and Andrew are thinking, we've tried Jesus, but we've failed. Maybe it's time to take another tack. Better yet, maybe it's time to let this idea die and move on to something else. But where their finite highway of human knowledge, human information, where it has come to an end, Jesus' infinite highway of love has just begun. Somehow the 5,000 ended up fed and satisfied with leftovers to boot. So let's play a little mental game, a for instance. What if? I'm going to let you into a world about some things I've been thinking about for a while. It goes back for some years. Might be time to start thinking seriously about this. So, what if, for instance, What would it take to begin an outreach program? I'm thinking big here, like feeding 5,000, right? What would it take to begin an outreach program for foster youth in our own backyard, in Riverside County? This is where my mind goes with this. Many of you know I do work with Vida Joven in Mexico, in Tijuana, which is an orphanage for kids. We say it's an orphanage, but they aren't orphans. They've been abandoned, they've been neglected, they've been abused, they've become wards of the state, and they go on to this orphanage in Tijuana. Well, really, that's more or less the same thing as our foster program in the States. So this got me thinking about kids in our own backyard. And so I sat down with a cup of coffee, took a drive on the information superhighway. And I remember first thinking, surely Mexico's foster system is in far greater need than the United States foster system, right? Ours is far more developed than theirs. The need has got to be greater there. But these are some facts I've learned over the last several months. There are about 8,000 foster kids in San Diego County, 0 to 18. There are about 4,000 in Riverside County. If a child is not adopted by the time he or she reaches middle school, chances drop to nearly 0 that he or she will be adopted at all. And the number of times that children switch group homes in schools in middle school and high school is astounding. A couple more facts. A lot of children are booted on their 18th birthday from their group homes. No more funding. They get, pushed out the door, whether they've completed high school or not. And nationwide, these are really staggering. 83% of foster kids are held back by 3rd grade. About half only graduate high school, or ever graduate high school. Some 15% enroll in college, but less than 3% actually graduate. And 66% within a year turning 18 either end up homeless, or in jail, or dead. That was from a 2012 statistic. I'm sure the statistics aren't that much different today. Well, the needs of orphans in Mexico are profound, and I don't want to make light of those at all. We should not slacken in our work with efforts and organizations like Vida Joven. But I was surprised to learn that in the U.S. we have orphans too with just as deep needs. About 4,000 in our backyard in need of food, clothing, shelter, and maybe even more importantly, stability and education. These statistics show we really can't delude ourselves, as I had done, into thinking that our present foster system is adequate. It's doing a good job, it's making a good effort, but it needs our partnership. It needs partnership of others who are willing to come along. So on another drive, another day on the information superhighway, I found out something really good that's happening in San Diego County right now. It is a school called San Pasqual Academy. It's in San Pasqual Canyon, a little east of Escondido. Maybe you've driven by it. It is a foster school for high school students. It's a home and school program. They live there, they work there, they graduate high school there. Many of them even go on to college. Now, it's a public charter school that was the brainchild of a couple county supervisors in the late 90s. They decided that it's time to do something, at least a small thing, about the plight of foster kids in our area. And I'm happy to say in 2001, San Pasqual Academy opened its doors to its first students and has been successfully defying those statistics I shared ever since. It's a really good thing. But what if we took this a step further? You know about the National Association of Episcopal Schools? That's a part of our church. We have Episcopal schools all over the country. These have a long-standing relationship with the Christian liberal arts tradition. That's an approach to education that is designed to teach the whole person. A major advantage I think that we have is we can include a spiritual element that is very hard to include, maybe impossible, in state public schools. Its purpose, this education approach to education, its purpose is to develop leaders for tomorrow's generation. What if we could bring this to foster youth in Riverside County? One more drive on the information superhighway, one more cup of coffee, took me to Imago Dei Middle School in Tucson. It is an Episcopal school whose stated purpose is to prepare at-risk youth for high school. So in third grade, if a student is deemed illiterate or at risk in some way, they're referred to Imago Dei School, which has nearly a near 100% success rate of preparing those kids for a successful high school through the end of 8th grade. It's a 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. daily program. They start with morning prayer, they end with evening prayer. It's a 100% private school that from day one has been absolutely funded. It's been tuition free for these students. That's pretty amazing. Impossible funds. 6 months' wages, Jesus? How are we going to do that? They've been raised. There are modern miracles taking place. This overwhelming, seemingly impossible thing can happen. It's pretty exciting. Well, Jesus once had a vision for 5,000 people, so he asked Philip, where are we to buy bread for all these people to eat? It's overwhelming, so Philip said, I don't know. Maybe he was paralyzed. 6 months' wages wouldn't be enough. In other words, it's going to take a miracle, Jesus. But Philip found himself at the end of his human knowledge. Remember, where human knowledge ends, Jesus' love has just begun. So there, only at the beginning of love's knowledge, he watched. And remember what happened? Andrew approached Jesus. It almost seemed like he was excited at first. We have a boy. I mean, that's how I pictured. We have a boy here with 5 loaves and 2 small fish. Oh, but I don't think that's going to be enough. It's like he changes from the middle statement. I don't know what it was like. I don't know if Andrew and Philip were both in disbelief still. I like to think so. And I like to think that that boy, we do have this boy, Jesus. I like to think that the boy believed, and Jesus believed too, even if no one else did. Even if it was just Jesus and a boy, it was a start. They did something. As far as Jesus cared, that was enough. Have the people sit down. And we know what happened next. Love's knowledge produced so much that all 5,000 were fed and satisfied, but 12 basketfuls were left over. That's impossible funds raised. A miracle. There's an Episcopal school, a vision for an Episcopal school for foster students, a home and schools environment. Does this sound overwhelming or paralyzing? I think it does in a lot of ways. Is your response to this vision, as mine has been, it would take a miracle? Already we've seen a lot more than 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. We've seen Vita Hoven, we've seen the Episcopal school system, we've seen Imago Dei, we've seen San Pasqual Academy. Jesus can take these and multiply them. We can see a modern day miracle in our midst. Let me know if you'd like to explore this further with me.